going on? What's going on? It's Dron, Jay Lockridge here, the Guerilla Filmer, whichever name you choose to refer to me. Episode 7. We are here today, episode 7. This is the Guerilla Filmer Podcast, a podcast for low to no budget filmmakers living an everyday life, whether you work 8 to 5 or, just a normal person, who hasn't made it to that threshold where you can say, I make films for a living and I make a lot of money. This podcast is for you. We're all learning together, building this thing up together, and we're going to keep on doing it. And I have a few films under my belt, so I'm not going to call myself a aficionado or nothing like that. I'm just going to say that I've made enough mistakes that I can probably share some information to keep you from making those same mistakes. So we're all learning, growing together. And I just decided to make this podcast as a way to help up and coming filmmakers and in a way, kind of offer my help and get myself out there. So this is the Guerilla Filmer Podcast, episode 7. And today, our topic is going to be how to finance a movie with no budget. That's going to be our topic today. As you can see, some of you who are on YouTube or Facebook, you can see my face again. Tried something a little different. Episode 6. Tried to go through my podcasting service and see how that worked, and I kind of liked it. But I'm gonna kind of go back to showing my face for my YouTube, Facebook followers, and people who like the traditional podcast method. You'll hear the audio while you're exercising, riding in your car, doing something to where you can't be glued to a TV, or maybe you just like your podcast that way. So you'll have that option as well. I'll just kind of keep doing my thing, blending the two, going back and forth, and leaving the options up to you, the audience, the few people who tune in every episode to see what I got to say. So this is how we're going to do it. I might experiment here and there every now and then, but I'm still working all this out. It's still a new show. We're going to play around with a lot of things, and eventually I want to get to the place where I'm having guests. I want to get 10 episodes out first before I start inviting guests, but guests, not vests. I'm already starting it. I'm not going to do that today. Guest will start coming on the show, and I'm looking forward to that. That way you don't have to see me and my fat face just continue to babble in front of you. So that will be coming soon. I'm in the process of getting a few of those confirmed, but we're trying to make it to 10 episodes. That's a milestone. This is episode 7, and we're rocking it along. So no further beating around the bush. Let's get to the topic, and that is how to finance a movie with no budget. And for me, that is a way of life. Whenever you're thinking of a project, short film, feature film, whatever you're trying to do, in some way, even though I always preach that I'm no budget, which is true. Anything, I want to say under $20,000 is looked at as no budget. Maybe micro budget is looked at between 10 and 20. Maybe 20,000 is micro budget. I don't know the professional definition behind it, but I know under 10,000, you're considered to be a no budget filmmaker. So no matter if you have a few $1,000s, that's technically no budget, because you're not supposed to be able to make films with that. There's just no budget. But somehow we still have the grit to get it done. I still have the grit. to get it done because I've never had a single film that I've produced, series or else, over $10,000. So how am I doing this? And the first point that I want to, bring forth, not to beat a dead horse, because I've mentioned this part plenty of times. It starts with the script. You'll save yourself a whole lot of headache by thinking of this whenever you write the script. Or if you're not a writer, if you're just a producer, whoever you have writing your script or whatever scripts that you pick, you better make sure that it's not too ambitious for itself, that you can produce it with a no budget scale. You want to write around common things that you have access to, public buildings and stuff like that. Here in Tennessee, we are a no permit state. Most places here, you don't need a permit unless you're blocking off the roadway or you're interfering with a business, a normal flow of business somewhere. Yeah, most of the times, if you're respectful, you don't need a permit. So we kind of are lucky here. Elsewhere, this may not pertain to you the same, but public buildings, places where people frequent, you could use those in your script. Your residents, your relatives' residents, you want to be open with them. Tell them exactly what you're planning on doing as far as equipment, crew, cast. Uh, Me personally, whenever I use somebody's residence that, somebody who actually lives there, I may film my interiors there with as minimal as it takes. I don't want to have a bunch of people in and out of this person's house. I want to respect this person's property better than I respect my own, because I'm fortunate that they're allowing me to be in that property. And you want to take care of it. You want to utilize it and take care of it. And unless that person is like, oh, I don't care, I usually try to shoot my exteriors somewhere else. Meaning, I'll shoot all my interior scenes there, but I'll shoot, if I have to have exterior scenes or whatever, I'll shoot those somewhere else. It's just something personal to me. I just don't want to put too much of that person's property out there unless they're totally for it. You'll find people like that. I don't care. Just go ahead and film. Do what you got to do. The house is yours, and you'll find people like that, and you'll be fortunate. And you can work that. But sometimes you just want to be very respectful of somebody's house, especially a person who still resides at their property. Just writing the script around everything, actors, anything that you have access to will save you a headache, a big headache. When you start writing and you're writing these big locations, I had a guy I know contact me the other day, had this big location. And I mean, unless you just have to have it to make the story that you're working on work, I would try to avoid that unless it's a public location to where you can just film it and nobody knows. It could be a train track or a train museum or something. And if you got one or two actors, just your camera and a light and a setup, a lot of times it's not distracting enough. But if it's busy with people walking, they're going to be looking into your camera and stuff. So you have to keep that in mind. You just have to be creative whenever you're writing, and you just have to think 10 steps ahead. Hey, would this work? Would I be able to do this? And when you do that, it'll save you a ton of money from the jump. But if that's not quite suitable for you, if you've bought a script, or you're just somebody who just decides that you just can't write like that, handicapped, you just have to let it flow, and you find out once you get that script written that, all right, might need a little bit of money to pull this off, you have a few options, and I'll talk about those few options on this podcast. So the first option I want to talk about is crowdfunding. Most people know what crowdfunding is. It's when you basically, I don't want to say solicit or beg, but you're basically seeking donations towards your film. You still keep all the rights. They are donations for perks, or just could be donations out of love. I've seen people use GoFundMe to raise money for a film. I'm trying to do this film. I'm trying to get such and such money. Please donate to my GoFundMe. I've seen people use GoFundMe and be successful. A lot of times it's family and friends, or just people who, believe in that person, and, no perks or nothing. They just donate to their GoFundMe. I've seen somebody raise $25,000 for a movie on GoFundMe. You have other sites like Kickstarter. The only thing with Kickstarter, if you don't raise 100% of what you asked for, all the money that's been donated goes back to the people. They don't give you none of that money unless you've raised 100%, unless something's changed that I don't know about. You have to hit 100% of your goal to get that money. You can go over, and they'll give you over that budget, whatever you want it. But if you don't get to that threshold, or say you wanted $25,000, if you get 24,999 and the deadline passes, you get none of that money. All that money goes back to the people who donated it. That's how Kickstarter works. But with Kickstarter, you have to provide perks. I don't know if it's a requirement, but most people on Kickstarter and this other platform I'm going to talk about, they require perks. $5 for a thank you, $10 for your name in the credits, $25 for a t-shirt and a ticket to the screening. $1,000 to be on set while we film. It's a different type of perks that people can go and purchase as a donation to your film to help you raise money. Another site is Indiegogo. And Indiegogo, no matter what they donate, you get to keep it. And that's the site that I used when I crowdfunded for, I believe it was The Sticks, was my last time attempting to crowdfund. And I think for The Sticks, I wanted to go for a $25,000 goal, but I only made it to like $700. When you go through crowdfunding, another thing to keep in mind is your base. You have to have a strong base, family and friends, donating. It kind of, and it works on the algorithm. On the site, it'll boost it up when it sees it's a hot commodity. You have to really work with crowdfunding. You have to send it out to people. You have to create content to engage people to be interested enough to want to donate or see your film come to life. It's a grind, crowdfunding. It's not easy as just putting it out there and asking for money. You have to have a plan, a great plan, and you have to execute that plan, flawlessly. You have to keep going. You have to keep going for it and be consistent with seeking those donations for your film. Another platform, which is Seed and Spark. Their requirement is that you go through a class to further help your success rate when you're crowdfunding, especially through them. And they have a pretty high hit rate as far as their crowdfunding goal because of that, because they kind of educate their filmmakers on the do's and don'ts and what you need to do, and they let you know it's going to be work. You're going to have to consistently go and message and email and, get uncles and aunts and friends and even strangers to be interested in whatever film it is that you're doing. So that's an option there when you're doing crowdfunding. For me personally, I haven't had any success with crowdfunding. It's something that I may try in the future, but I've done so many films now. It has to be something big for me to even try that, because I've shown that I can do it without it. And although I may still get some donations, like it has to be something that, to prove to people like, hey, I need to do this. Like I have a Western, I have a script for a Western that I'm excited about. And I want to produce it. And I'm thinking of in the future trying crowdfunding for that. Because for that Western, you're gonna need horse wranglers, you're gonna need pretty good insurance, you're gonna need props, you're gonna need so much to make a Western authentic. And I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to find some old houses to rent. I'm gonna need some cash for this Western. And when it gets time for me to produce that Western, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to try crowdfunding. It's this other site called WeFunder, who allows people to donate toward your film for a percentage of ownership. I haven't done too much research on it, but I've seen a lot of filmmakers be successful with that platform. So I'm kind of weighing between the two for this Western that I have a idea for. But I'm pretty sure that I'll consider a crowdfunding type method for that film, because I don't have the budget myself for enough money to raise to successfully do a Western, unless it's going to be bones, like somebody out in the middle of the woods with no horse, stranded or something. Like, unless I get creative like that, that's the only way that I can do a Western by myself. So that's one way to get funding for your film. If you're like me, you're not good at crowdfunding, not good at raising money and politicking and kissing the babies. And that's part of my problem too, because I'm naturally an introvert. I'm not great at that. And I'll get frustrated. What's wrong with me? Starting again. I'll get frustrated and I'll give up quickly. So crowdfunding is not my first choice. I've learned that. And that may not be for you, but you may know if you're a screenwriter and you want to direct a script that you've written, you may know a cinematographer, you may know a makeup artist, you may know actors, and a way that you can also, finance that. You might know some location owners who may normally want a fee. Barter. Barter system is a great tool when you have no money. The cinematographer may eventually want to write them or film their own movie. Okay. I need a cinematographer for my movie. You do me this solid, I'll write you a script. If you got an idea, we'll work on that. Even trade, like just bartering out your services, especially if you have skills, to get a job done. You may need a makeup artist. If you barter me for this film, I might be able to do this for you. Or, just you have to get creative with that. And barter is a great way to get people that you need to get your film together. A lot of times when you're bartering for crew, DP, makeup artists, and stuff like that, a lot of times your actor roles are going to be unpaid. I mean, it's just the way of it. If you don't have somebody to operate a camera and all this, you're not going to have a movie anyway. And a lot of times the actors, their payment is going to be the real footage. So you have to kind of be upfront about that. Look, I had to barter this entire film. All I can offer you is real footage, maybe some fuel expenses, real footage and food on set, stuff like that. Um, you have to be able to barter well. And me personally, I don't like to give out real footage until the film is released. Because nowadays you have to deal with people posting stuff online and stuff like that. And, I've had that issue before where actor posted their real footage I gave them online. Plot points are in that real footage. Some, not all of them, but some of them don't care. They just want you to see I can act, cast me in your film. But that's usually why I wait until the film is released, unless it's some special circumstances under that, and usually I'm pretty clear and straightforward about it if I go earlier than that. But a barter system is a great way to do that, like a half barter, half deferment system. Um, or half barter, and just letting the actors know you're unpaid. And if you go defer, you can half barter, half defer. And when I say defer, you defer payment until later. I don't like to do the defer payment uh, until the film makes money thing, because if a producer tells you we're going to defer payment until the film makes money, you're basically working for free. Because very few of us out here are making the type of money that we can go back later and pay your actors. Just to be 100 with you. Most of us are very fortunate to break even. Okay. And you have a few filmmakers that are making some pretty good dough with their films. But hopefully that person is straight up enough that they do good business and are just not out here getting over on people. That if you're actually making some decent money and your actors didn't get paid up front, you need to be taking care of them. So most of the time when somebody defers payment, don't fall for the if the film makes money thing, because everybody thinks, okay, even if your film got on Netflix, it's not necessarily going to make a lot of money. People think because you get on these big platforms that you done made it. It's not the case. Netflix is not paying that type of money, especially if you don't have stars in it, name stars in it. So, if I tell you as an actor, I'm going to defer you until the film makes money, just be prepared to work for free. Or when I defer, me personally, if I have to barter I don't barter because I do most of the crew work myself. I worked hard to learn those skills. And a lot of times my budget goes toward my actors and locations. So locations are first. You got to have locations to film. And then after my locations is how I determine the budget that I'm able to pay my actors. So if I have, so and so left after my locations, if I'm lucky enough to get some locations free and just pay for a few, most of the time I pay my actors based on, here in Tennessee, we have minimum wage. Minimum wage here is like $8. Sucks, I know. But I usually try to give $1 or $2 above minimum wage. And I usually try to go per hour with a minimum of 2 hours. It's not a lot of money, but I'm at least showing my actors I'm trying to compensate you in some way. I'm trying my best to compensate you. Even with no money, I'm still trying to give you something. And a lot of actors appreciate that. I'll give them, a few hours rate and fuel expenses, even though my budget is probably 2,000 cash. Like, I'm trying to give you something to show you that even though I have nothing, I'm trying to, compensate you for your time. And you have to appreciate actors who will come on board even for no money. You have to appreciate them and show them you appreciate them. So that's something that I do. After my locations, if I had to pay for all of my locations, I'm probably not gonna have much money left. At the point I'm at now, I, at a minimum, try to give fuel expense at a absolute minimum, even if I can't pay. And if they're lead roles, if they're coming for multiple days, something that I am doing is deferring until the film screening. I usually have a screening for my films, and I will. They Live in the Shadows is my biggest example. I've said this plenty of times. Like, I did that film with literally $500. I got all of my locations free, housed my actors at my house. I had my kids go to the grandparents for the week, and I housed the actors here. Cut that money in half. They ate what we ate. We cooked for them, stuff like that, and deferred their payment until the screening. And they basically, after I got my expenses back for what I rented the theater, prints, and stuff like that, they basically split the screening sales. And usually, when you go that route, they make more money than they would have if I gave them like a per hour rate. So that's a way, especially if I don't have to pay a whole bunch of people. Um, like I usually try to leave my cast small. Um, that's an option for you if you have to um get a film done with little money. Have a premiere screening, sell tickets, um, and after your expenses, whatever you paid to rent the building and all this and that, give all that money to your actors. You have the film. The film is yours. So give all that screening money to your actors and let them leave compensated, even if it's months down the road. So just be open with them. Be upfront with whoever you're working with. Let them know, look, I don't have this money, but I'm willing to work with you on this and work with you on that. Um, you can also, wager a percentage of ownership. Um, if you're somebody who's trying to get a movie done, you need a DP and all of this and that. You need great actors. Approach them with ownership points. Um, that's something where I'm not too familiar with it. I've heard of it, but my team is so small. I try to stay away from that because of taxes and accounting and just so much stuff that I'm still learning myself. And it's just easier to keep everything in house and simple, with my name being on my tax forms when I'm filing my taxes and everything's just straight down the middle. I don't have to worry about, how to send these checks out to people. Like, I just don't have enough to do that. So I usually stay away from that, the percentage and the point systems. But, you can, divide ownership, and a lot of people will jump for that. If you're number savvy, business savvy, tax savvy like that, that may be a way for you to get your films produced, providing some sense of ownership to the people who are heavily involved in that project. So say your DP and your actors, especially your lead actors, if they're shooting the majority of the film a variety of days, um hey, I give you so many points, so much percentage of the film, and we all have this film together. A lot of them will jump towards that. They're making pennies anyway, and that's something that even actors, like, if you're getting a wage, it's not gonna happen with me. I'm just gonna be straight up with you. But some filmmakers that may work for, ask for a percentage of ownership. Um, Ask, hey, you probably can't pay me. You're not being able to pay me much. Just give me some points on the film. And you have quite a few people out there who are business savvy enough to know how to do that. And some distributors, if you go with a distributor, you can add the executive producers and all this and that, and they may be able to send those checks out and do the accounting the way it needs to be. But that's something that you have to research on, and that is an option for you. Also, I would just suggest talking to some filmmakers that you may know to ask about that, who may be doing that, and that's an option for you. Is providing ownership. For me, like I said, I'm not too informed about that. Um, and then when it comes, tax season is already stressful for me, so I just love to have the fill in the blank my name on everything. So I usually go away from that when it comes to that stuff. Now, when I get bigger, um, you know, that may be an option when I'm able to hire me an accountant to watch all of my stuff, and I can take my mind totally off of that. And I start looking to cast, bigger actors and stuff. I might offer that. Hey, um, your rate is a little too high for me. Would you like, some ownership points in this film? And you have a lot of actors. It's like an investment of their time, and they would go for that. So that's an option. Also, if bartering doesn't work, offering a percentage of ownership for your film. Different strokes for different folks, and that's um something where I believe Jim Carrey did in Me, Myself, and Irene. One of his films, like True Lies. This one of them. He basically deferred his whole payment for ownership of the film, for some points of the film, and I think after after it was all said and done, he's made 15 times what his salary would have been if he had have chosen just to say, "Hey, just pay me now." So sometimes this works. You just have to have that dialogue with that filmmaker or whoever it is who's having that film with you. So always talk to have an understanding. For me personally, it doesn't work because my goals are a little bit different. Something that I'll talk about here a little bit later. And then you also have the investor route. Um, there's different types of investors. Um, you may have a DP offer to invest in your film. You may have actors who offer to invest in your film. Um, it's this thing now where distributors are even investing in your film. You usually have to come out with a film first. You have to have some films under your belt for that distributor to see, all right, this person knows what they're doing. But a lot of distributors, smaller distributors right now, are investing into filmmakers. But when you take money from an investor per se, you no longer own that film unless you've matched investments into that film somewhere. It's kind of like the point system I was saying. If you wrote the script, the DP came on, your two lead actors, all of you own a portion of that pie if they all agreed to come on for points. If an investor invests into your film, they own 100% of that. So you kind of have to, divvy that up how you see fit. If you're trying to get a film done for 50,000, you only have 20 to put in the pot. Somebody else has another 20. Somebody else has 10. That's how the ownership is going to divide up into that film. Whoever has the money, as soon as you set those dollars, that person has ownership into your movie. So when you seek investors, you just have to know that. I had a guy I spoke to recently. He wants certain type of projects. So he's looking for certain type of projects to get produced. What type of budget are you looking for? What type of budget will you need? We'll negotiate that. I'll go out here. I have to write it, most likely film it like I've been doing for my own stuff. And once everything's done, once I edit it up and everything, I'm basically telling him what I would pay, my rate. So if my rate is $400 a day, $250 a day, or however much an hour to edit, all of my rates are going to be in that budget, and then the actors' rates and everything, and I'm gonna tally all that up, and I'll give him the budget of money that I need for it. So if I tell him 15 to 20,000, he'll give me that 20,000. We'll get the film made. I'll edit the film, lock the cut, give him the cut. It's his. I'll never see another dime because he gave me the budget for that film. So you have to pay yourself out of that, pay your actors, all your expenses for the film, and you're handing that film off. It's basically a for hire job at that point. Although you pretty much did all the work, and that works for some people, but for me it doesn't. If I'm writing the film, like I'm too invested, that becomes my baby. Now, if you approach me, hey, I want to be produce a film, you have this and that, and I already have that understanding from the jump. Like, yeah, I'm doing this for you. Basically, you're paying me my rate to write and blah blah this and that, and I'm just doing this for you. I can understand that. I wouldn't have an issue with that if you gave me a budget to be the executive producer of a film or whatever, and I know this is your baby. But if it's mine, if I'm writing, I just can't detach like that. So some people can. Some people can just, they love the art, but some people got to eat. And that comes to my last point. Financing your film is, what is your goal? Own or eat? Are you trying to own or eat? I'm an ownership guy. I want to own all of my films. All of them. I'm big on ownership. I have plans on one day having my own streaming channel. Tyler Perry. I'm not too fond of his work, but he's a total inspiration as a content creator and a businessman. Like, that's how I'm trying to be. I'm trying to get to the point that I can own me a network one day. Ownership. I would rather own eventually than direct. Like, I might be able to write. I'm good with hiring a director, sitting back and watching them bring my words to life. But at the end, I want to own. You may be the type of filmmaker, you don't care about all that. It's too much paperwork, too much fuss, too much trying to promote, too much all this marketing, all this hassle. I just want my money. I want to eat. You may be perfectly fine with that. It's what your goal is. Own or eat. If you're fine with just having some money to pay your bills and eat, you may be totally fine with handing that film off to a distributor or an investor, letting them do all the hard work. But you have to know, no matter how big that film gets, you've already got your piece of the pie. Whatever you got paid out of that budget, whatever you kept out of that budget, whatever you paid yourself, whatever your rate was, that is what is owed to you. So no matter how big that film gets, that was your piece of the pie that you agreed to. And that's like an issue that I have with a lot of people that they get bigger. And like with the cast of Friday, I kind of read some of these quotes, and they may not have meant it like that. It may just been like, hey, I just did that film for $500, like just kind of, saying it, not meaning no ill will, but at the time when you did this small budget film, most of the actors that were in Friday were very low level. None of them were the stars they are now. They are, they grew to that stardom, but at the time, like, what you made was pretty decent money for your stature and your status and the budget of the film. Nobody knew Friday was going to become this huge cult classic. You can never predict. Killing these words again. Talking too fast. Talking ahead of myself. You can never predict that. So when people come out later and like, man, I only made $500 for that. Of course, it was low budget. Leo DiCaprio didn't start off making $20 million a film. So you have to realize that, like, no matter how big that film gets, whatever you accept from that investor or that distributor who's investing, basically for hiring you to get them more projects, especially when the distributors offer you money. They just want their catalog bigger. You're a decent filmmaker who does something within their niche, and they need you to make more for them. They want their catalog bigger. The more bigger their catalog, the more sustainable their cash flow is. And as long as they ain't got to divvy out checks, they gave you all your money up front, it's way easier for them. And you're seeing a lot of these low budget distributors doing that now. They're just calling the filmmaker straight up how much money you need to make this film. And once that film is done, it's their film. So if that thing shows up most popular on Tubi or Amazon, you just better be proud in the work that you've done, because you're not going to see another dime of that money. It's just how it is. It's a business. This game is art, but it's show business for a reason. Show and business is the biggest word on that whole thing. It's a business. And when you understand that, you can make films and do this a lot easier. So what's your goal? Own or eat? That's something that you might need to know ahead of time too, before you even start the script. Own or eat? My thing is ownership. I've been doing all this work for a reason. If I'm going to sit here and write, film, and edit and do all this work, I'm going to bet on myself. And knowing that my budgets are going to be low, I'm going to produce projects that I know I can produce. So that's why the script is where I start when I think of my budget. That's how I finance my no budget films. I'm thinking of it with the script. Where can I film it? All right. Right here in Jackson, I know a lot of locations. I know a lot of location owners. I have access to this, access to that. It's not going to cost me a lot of money. Actors here, actors there. I don't have to pay them fuel expense because we're right here around town. Jackson's a small area, so I can get this film. So I only got $2,000. I think I can make this film. I'm doing all the crew work. I'm not getting paid. I'm not paying myself. I'm deferring that because my payment is ownership of my film. So $2,000, even though somebody else would be like, what? I can make a movie because all of those things I just said. For you, that may not be the same. You might have to go a different way. You might have to barter with some people. You might have to crowdfund. You might have to take an investor. It's how bad you want it. If nothing else fails, if you just want to make a film, you got something you got to do, you might have to eat for a while. Ownership might be too big of an idea for you at this point in time. You might have to work yourself up to ownership. You might have to take that money from a distributor just to keep making movies. Pay yourself out of it, pay your actors, ship that movie to the distributor. You might have to live like that. You have to live within your means. You have to do what you have to do what you want to do. You have to go through it to do it. I'm not you, you not me. So it's whatever works for you. What's your goal? I want to eat. And do whatever it takes to get the film done. Even if you got to give the film off to an investor. It's that investor's baby. Hey, you still got a film under your belt that you can use later. You got something to put on your sizzle reel. You got credits to put on IMDb. It's not all for nothing. You just don't own that final product. It's somebody else's. But the work was still done by you. You're not giving away the credit. So what's your goal? You got to know all these things well ahead of time to save yourself a headache. And hopefully there were some good tips for you to show you how to finance a movie with no budget. I think if you stick to those principles, you can kind of find your roadmap pretty easily. So I'm not going to talk any more. I've already been on here longer than I said today. I was just going to talk for 30 minutes and it's almost 45 minutes again. Maybe I just need to set my goal for 45 minutes. But, I think those are some pretty good tips to kind of help you if you're trying to figure out how can I afford to make me a movie when I ain't got no money. Just follow some of those tips and I promise you'll be well ahead of yourself. And this is episode 7. And until next time, continue to make films, continue to create, and just do it by whatever means necessary. You got to go through it to do it. That's going to be my new saying. I might get that tatted or something. You got to go through it to do it. But it will be bi-weekly. 2 weeks from now, episode 8 will drop. This is episode 7. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, like, send this video to somebody who needs to hear it. If you're on Facebook, like the page, like the post, share the post, send it to somebody who might need to hear it. If you're on one of my podcast networks, download the podcast, come back and, comment, tell me if this was some useful information for you. And, you look for me on, I think I'm on Deezer, Spotify, Podcast, Amazon, about to be on Apple Podcast soon. Just search me for wherever you listen to your audio podcast. And look out for me again. Episodes are releasing bi-weekly, and episode 8 will be coming soon. So until then, I hope that you got something out of all this babbling that I've done tonight, and I will see you next time for the Guerilla Filmer Podcast, episode 8. And that's all I gotta say. It's been a long night, and I'm going to bed. See you beautiful people later. Deuces.